Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I get you caught up with all of the player transactions that have been going on over the past couple weeks. Between the expansion draft in Vegas, the entry draft in Chicago, and all of the trades that went on surrounding them, plus the NHL Awards and some Hall of Fame announcements, there's plenty to talk about, so let's get started. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 1, Episode 45. Recorded on Tuesday, June 27th, 2017. Expansion draft, entry draft, and trades.
Shut up and sit down.
The Golden Knights from the Colorado Avalanche select Calvin Pickard goalie. The Vegas Golden Knights select James Neal. From the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Vegas Golden Knights select goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury.
On behalf of the New Jersey Devils organization and our ownership group, Josh Harris and David Blitzer, I want to thank the City of Chicago, John McDonough, Mr. Wirtz. Also want to say hello to our tremendous fans back in Newark, New Jersey at our draft festival. With our first selection in the 2017 entry draft, the New Jersey Devils are proud to welcome from the Halifax Mooseheads, Nico Hischier.
So just after 1 a.m. in Nader, Switzerland, a town of around 8,000 people, which is located just north of the Italian border, but you got to believe that they are awake and they are no doubt celebrating right now. You see Hischier hugging his family, emotional moment. He was a local product there. Out of Nader, Switzerland, Hischier has just become the first Swiss-born player to go number 1 overall in the NHL draft.
Prior to the World Junior Championships, where he was a dominant player, a number of NHL scouting directors told me, don't close the door on him going first overall. And then he gets to that tournament, and he put on a show. And it wasn't just a show of flash. It was also a show of great will and great determination. We talk about a difference maker. He's all of that and more.
I think this is great news. If you're Taylor Hall right now, you're thinking about this, you're getting a guy like, whoa, this is an upgrade. If you're Kyle Palmieri, you're going, this is fantastic news. The New Jersey Devils infrastructure just took a huge step forward. This is great news for them.
And he has a chance to play in their lineup next year. Not absolutely guaranteed. He's 179 pounds, which is a little bit light, but he's hockey strong. He's only going to get stronger. He's almost 6'2", and because of the dynamic speed and skill in his game, he will get an opportunity to be a full-time player in the NHL as early as next year.
Totally agree.
And that rapid rise, he goes all the way to number 1, Bob.
Well, the Halifax Mooseheads weren't a very good team this year. Nobody expected anything from them. They weren't must-see TV for anybody in Canada. From the moment Hischier started this season, though, the scouts recognized that this guy was on an incredible trajectory. And he was doing things that Jonathan Drouin and Nathan McKinnon did when they were on a powerhouse team that only lost 5 games. And this guy put up similar numbers to them in their draft years.
Beginning of the season, considered mid-first round. He goes number 1 here.
New York Rangers select from HV 71. Elias Anderson.
Well, first of all, I'll just say this about Anders Kalor, one of the truly great gentlemen in the game. Spent a lot of time with him overseas in a lot of different rinks. For Gordon Clark to announce that he's going to make the pick, Craig, that is awesome.
So Elias Anderson from Sweden, but Craig, he's being billed as a Swiss Army knife type player.
That's what he is. He can play left wing, he can play right wing, he can play center. He can play up the lineup, he can play throughout the lineup. He can penalty kill, he can be on the power play. He reminds me a lot in style and temperament of Chris Kunitz. So you think about the ability of Chris Kunitz to play with a Crosby, you got to be be really smart. And Elias Anderson is really smart. And he's a big-time competitor who's weighty, and he doesn't get pushed out of the important areas of the game.
No, the Rangers believe this is a kid that you win with, that he's got those traits that make him special in that regard, even though he's not an elite offensive player. But he did play extremely well in the Swedish League playoffs against the men. He put up goals. As an underage in Grand Forks a couple of years ago at the World Under-18 Championships, he was exceptional, and that's where people really first started to take notice of him.
Carolina Hurricanes are proud to select from the Czech Republic, Martin Necas.
So, as Bob mentioned, Martin Necas from the Czech Republic, hockey IQ, engine skating, all 5 out of 5, Craig.
I have a man crush on him. I love him. I love him as a player. I love everything about him. I mean, he's dialed in to compete with high-end skill. He can skate, he can pass, he wants to make a difference in the game, and he reminds me so much of Claude Giroux. He's not interested from the drop of the puck when it happens. He is ready and dialed in to try to make a difference. And he's been the captain of the 99 group in Czech Republic, and he's always been that player that in all those moments, he wants to take the initiative, he wants to attack, and he's not going to shy away from any area of the game. I think as a centerman, Pierre, he's got that ability to come in and really give them that high-end dynamic skill.
The big question about him is, when will he be big enough, and when will he be strong enough to play in the NHL? Because he's from a small part of the Czech Republic. He's got a lot of off-ice work to do to be ready to play in the NHL. That's the only question I have. When will he be big enough to do that?
And that's a question with physical maturity. You just got to wait and have it.
The Boston Bruins are proud to select from JYP Finnish Elite League Urho Vakanainen.
And Pierre, the party in Finland continues.
Third defenseman in the first round for the Finns. Pretty impressive. Top 18. We saw what happened last year. 3 of the top 5 picks were Finnish players. 3 defensemen. Exceptional skater. He can really get the puck under pressure and get it out of the zone. And, you know, Don Sweeney, the general manager, he must just have a little bit of a bench, a little bit of a likeness for those defensemen that can skate, because Donnie was a pretty good skater.
How about Torrey Krug takes him in? Absolutely.
But with Vakanainen, I don't know if he's got the offensive ability, but he's got the skating ability. He reminds me in style to Jonas Brodin of the Minnesota Wild, and, you know, those are effective players. If he develops some offense, he'll be that much better. But he's a solid defenseman that can transition the puck.
Hello and welcome to our final episode of Season 1, Episode 45 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. I'm here with Steve. My name is Wayne. How's it going today, Steve?
Going good, Wayne. Good to be with you. Sorry for the little delay from the last podcast, but good to be talking hockey with you again.
Yeah, it's been quite a while since we've had a podcast, and both you and I had little breaks away from our normal day-to-day. I had a little, actually my trip was only 4 days. My wife and I went up and did a little sightseeing in the Washington, D.C. area. Had a blast, had great weather for that, and you guys went down to Charleston.
No, we went to Savannah, Georgia.
Oh, okay, Savannah. Oh, I thought you were hitting Charleston too.
That's the same neck of the woods, though.
Yep.
And it was burning hot down there, let me tell you. I came back a few pounds lighter from loss of sweat.
Yeah. Weather wasn't too bad in D.C. It was warm later in the afternoon, but we planned it right. We did a lot of the outdoor stuff in the morning, and then we went and did some museums in the afternoon. So when it got hot, but we had fun anyway.
That's great.
But because of that, we've missed 12 days since we've done a podcast. So it is time to get back into it. And in the last 12 days, there's been a whole lot that's been going on. Before we get into that, just to give you a quick rundown of what has been going on, we had the awards ceremony, the expansion draft, the NHL Entry Draft, a whole bunch of transactions. We had some Hall of Famers get named this week. The qualifying offers went out to the restricted free agents. That was yesterday, Monday. Today is Tuesday, by the way, that we're recording. And development camps are coming up in the next couple of weeks. And then right on July 1st, the action continues as free agency starts up on July 1st. So before we get into all of that stuff, I want to remind everybody that you can interact with the show by tweeting us. Is probably the best way to get a hold of us. I'm at Wayne Halley 9. Steve is at sball504man. You can email the show at feedback@thehockeynuts.com. You can reach us through our Facebook page at facebook.com/thehockeynuts and our YouTube channel at thehockeynuts.com/YouTube. And we do live stream the show every time we record it. It is recorded as an audio podcast, but we do record the video and live stream it on YouTube and on our Facebook page, just in case you want to see us live in the flesh and watch the show there. And just some housekeeping before we get going on the hockey talk. Just to let everybody know who's been listening. Of course, we did it last time we recorded. We gave you the warning of our big long break that we were going to have, and I just want to run down a list of dates. And Steve, just correct me if I'm wrong, or these are dates we discussed the last time we got together. Our next scheduled podcast after this one will be in and around within a day or two of July 5th. And then the next one after that will be July 26th, give or take a day or two. And the next one after that will be August 16th, give or take a day or two. And then we get back to weekly podcasts starting on August 30th. So those will be the next 4 podcasts. And the reason being, again, both Steve and I have some time off. I've got 2 long 10-day vacations coming up between now and the end of August. So, and I'll be out of town for most, if not all, of those 10-day vacations. So, and it's just extremely difficult to record on the road. The way we're set up, everything is kind of based off my desktop computer at home. So if I'm not home, it's kind of hard to record a show, isn't it?
That's right. That's Yep.
And from time to time, if any big news stories come up, particularly any involving our favorite teams, we may pop on for a quick, 10-minute, 15-minute, whatever. It may just be myself, maybe Steve and I. If something comes up, we'll get together, and if we want to do a quick show, we may do so. No promises, though, but in between all of those dates, as we see fit. But for the time being, we will have 4 shows in the months of July and August total. So, and I'm also going to be active on Twitter in the meantime. So if you want to get word of some of the stories that I'm seeing coming across the news feed, a lot of times I just retweet the stories from some of the major players out there in the hockey media. So if you follow me, you'll be able to keep up as much as I do anyway with that. And Steve, I'm sure you'll do the same as well.
Yes.
And then I've been thinking also about putting out some more regular content on our YouTube channel. And Steve and I haven't really talked about it yet, but I've got some ideas on what we'll probably be doing with our YouTube channel in between the podcast episodes. We may put out some of our short interactions may just come out just on the YouTube channel. So you definitely want to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to receive all content from us. So, and again, if you want to get to the YouTube channel, I've created a shortcut. Just go to thehockeynuts.com/YouTube, and that'll take you right to our YouTube channel. So, all right, well, let's get on with the hockey stuff. And I figured what we would do is take things kind of chronologically. So after the last we talked, we were heading into the NHL Awards ceremony and the expansion draft. So let's talk about that stuff first. Let's first get the awards out of the way.
Yeah.
And what we'll probably just do, just because we've got so much content to talk about this week, is just run down the winners and not so much, talk about the nominees, so to speak. So let's, first and foremost, the Hart Trophy, Connor McDavid, pretty much as expected on that one.
Yes, it was either going to be him or Sidney Crosby. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. And another one that I pretty much nailed. I think I guessed right on that. I correct me if I'm wrong. I never took notes on our predictions, but the Norris, Brent Burns ended up being our winner, and I think that is who I chose.
I think that's who we both chose.
Or at least one of us did, yeah, if not both of us.
We both chose Brent Burns.
And I can't remember who I chose for the Hart.
I think you chose...
was it Crosby, maybe? I can't remember.
One was chose Crosby, and the other one chose Connor McDavid. but I can't remember who that.
I can't remember which. Yeah. Okay. Now the Calder Trophy. I know one of us chose Austin Matthews. One of us chose Patrick Laine, and it ended up being Austin Matthews. And again, yes. I can't remember which one of us chose which. So one of us were right. I got that one right. Okay. Yeah. And then on the Vezina, Sergei Bobrovsky ended up being our winner. And I think one of us at least chose that.
You got that one right.
Did I get that one right? All right.
I picked well, they didn't, back when we talked about this, Wayne, I picked from the Edmonton Oilers. Name is escaping me right now. It shouldn't. But the goalie for the Edmonton Oilers, and he wound up not even becoming a finalist for the award.
Oh, okay.
So, but that's you'd picked Sergei Bobrovsky quite a bit longer, early on, I think. So you were right there.
And Ted Lindsay Award ended up going
to... Talbot is the name. I'm sorry. Cam Talbot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ted Lindsay Award ended up going to Connor McDavid.
Yes. He definitely was the bearer of a lot. He got a lot of hardware this time.
Yeah, he certainly did. they're bringing up a lot of comparisons between him and Gretzky. Granted, they both played for the Oilers, and they're both very successful at a very young age. So you can see all the comparisons there. So, yeah, Ted Lindsay.
Now, I don't want to jump ahead in the show, but when we get to the section on restricted free agents and the offer sheets, okay?
Yeah.
I want to talk to you specifically. We don't have to spend a lot of time because I know we got a lot to talk about. I want to talk to you specifically, and I'm sure our listeners would like to hear your take on Connor McDavid, because he is a restricted free agent. Is he not at the end of this season or next year?
I believe at the end of next season he is. He's not up this year.
Okay. And just don't forget about that. Because I can learn from how you address that. Not up to speed on these restricted free agent offer sheets, and I'd like to learn a little more about it. So.
Okay. Yeah, certainly. And the Jack Adams goes to John Tortorella. I don't think either one of us got that one, did we?
Neither one of us picked that. Yeah.
So he seems to be a feast or famine coach, that guy.
Yes, he does. And one thing I learned at this award show is, and specifically in regards to the coaches, is Mike Babcock has never won that award, which surprised me.
Yeah.
He actually shook John Tortorella's hand on the way up to the podium.
Yeah, I saw that. He stepped out.
But he's never won the award.
Yep.
So
he'll get his. Especially if Toronto takes another step forward, I think he'll get some looks again next year. Mm. And for the Selke Trophy, I know I got this one right. Patrice Bergeron.
Yes, you did. You nailed that one at the beginning of the season.
If he keeps, pretty much. If he keeps winning that trophy, they might just rename it to the Patrice Bergeron Trophy, I think.
Yeah. And that guy, Mr. Gainey, who gave him the award, he tied him now for having won it 4 times.
Oh, okay.
And Bob Gainey's won it 4 times. So
that's probably why they had Gainey given. That's probably probably why Gainey was up there to give it to him.
Mm-hmm.
And next one is the Art Ross. Of course, that's a statistical award. Went to Connor McDavid. He won that by we knew who the winner was there, because that just goes to most points. The Bill Masterton Trophy went to Craig Anderson, and I think they could have. There were a couple of people that could have won that award, and they ended up doing something different. But another name that came to mind was Brian Bickle, although I don't think he was nominated, was he? Because his ordeal came pretty late in the season. But anyway, Craig Anderson ends up winning the Bill Masterton Trophy. The Rocket Richard, another statistical award, went to Sidney Crosby. The Jennings Trophy, statistical award for goaltenders, went to the Washington Capitals / Braden Holtby. And the Mark Messier Leadership Award, which is kind of an award that's a little weird to me, but that went to Nick Foligno. And yes. I say it's a little weird because basically the way I understand anyway, there's no committee to this award. It's Mark Messier decides who he's going to give it to every year, which is kind of weird to me. But
yeah, I hear you.
And why that is given at the NHL Awards, because that I'm sure Don Cherry and those guys over at CBC like to give out their own awards that they see fit. Why they let Mark Messier give out an award and not Don Cherry or one of those guys, who knows?
Yeah, that's true.
All right, the GM of the year went to David Poile, the Nashville Predators, deservedly so. They had a great year. The Foundational Player Award went to Travis Hamonic, and the King Clancy Trophy for humanitarian efforts went to Nick Foligno. And also at the NHL Awards show, there were special presentations given to both Brian Bickle and Dena Lang. Of course, Brian Bickle, we've talked about it earlier in the year. Carolina Hurricanes player is battling multiple sclerosis. And Dena Lang, obviously, is the player, the women's hockey player that got paralyzed during the Women's Winter Classic in Boston a couple of seasons ago now.
Yeah.
And she ran the Boston Marathon with former Boston Bruin Bobby Carpenter. And the two of them had, a special moment there at the NHL Awards. So all in all, as far as the award show, pretty typical, pretty standard, award show for the typical annual award show that the NHL hands out anyway. But in addition to the awards that night, because it was being held in Vegas, they also kind of wrapped the expansion draft in as part of the ceremonies there. So the way they would do it is they'd hand out a couple of awards, and then they would introduce a couple of the expansion players for the Vegas Golden Knights, and then they'd go back to do a couple of awards. So they went back and forth all night. Yeah. So let's talk about Vegas's team. They revealed who the 30 players were that went to Vegas's team. And let me pull it up on my screen real quick. There it is. All right. Vegas Golden Knights. All right, and I'll just go down player by player in the team that they came from, and stop me if you want to comment on any of it. And obviously we'll stop at the Rangers and Bruins and so on and so on. All right. The way they did it is they went in reverse order of the standings. So they started with the player from the Colorado Avalanche, which ended up being goaltender Calvin Pickard. He'll make a nice backup goalie for that team. The Vancouver Canucks gave up Lucas Biza, defenseman. New Jersey Devils gave up John Merrill, another defenseman. Arizona Coyotes gave up Timu Pokkanen, a forward. The Buffalo Sabres gave up William Carrier, if you say it Canadian. Another forward. Detroit Red Wings gave up Thomas Nosek, forward, and he was an American Hockey League player, wasn't he? Thomas Nosek? I was not familiar with him. Some of these players I'm not even familiar with. We really haven't talked about at all. Dallas Stars gave up forward Cody Aiken. Florida Panthers gave up forward Jonathan Marchessault. He'll be a nice addition for them. Mm-hmm. He'll be one of their better players. Braden McNabb, defenseman from the LA Kings. Carolina Hurricanes gave up an American Hockey League player, Connor Brickley. When I saw that one, I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah, that was surprising.
Carolina basically didn't give up anything in that deal. Connor Brickley, okay, well, go ahead. Knock yourself out with Connor Brickley. Because he played pretty much in Charlotte all season. Winnipeg Jets gave up Chris Thorburn, forward. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia Flyers gave up Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, another forward. A French forward, not a Canadian. He's from France. Tampa Bay Lightning gave up defenseman Jason Garrison. The New York Islanders gave up goaltender Jean-Francois Berube. So in my mind, he would be goaltender number 3 for that team in the depth chart.
Yeah, he may be in the Chicago Wolves organization.
Yeah.
As
unless they're going to
flip
there. Well, they had to pick 3 goalies. That was one of the criteria. So it's possible that they're going to try to flip one of those goalies. Mm-hmm. And because it was obvious to me after the fact. Now we'll talk more about it when I get done listing the players, but just that some of these players were gotten in with an intent to eventually flip them. So it looks like some of these players they have no interest in keeping whatsoever. Anyway, Nashville gave up James Neal, forward. That was a big loss for Nashville.
Yeah, that was Calgary, a major goal scorer for them.
Yeah, he was a big part of their playoff run this year. Calgary Flames gave up defenseman Derek Engelland. Toronto Maple Leafs gave up forward Brendan Leipsic. Yeah. And Boston Bruins gave up defenseman Colin Miller, pretty much as expected there. Ottawa Senators gave up Mark Mathot, and there was a lot of news about him this week, so we'll get to that. San Jose Sharks gave up defenseman David Schlemko. St. Louis Blues gave up defenseman David Perron, a forward, I'm sorry. He's a forward. And the New York Rangers gave up forward Oscar Lindberg.
Yes. I did not expect that, Wayne. I don't think either one of us did. And they're getting a good player. But I'm thankful that they bypassed a couple of the guys they could have picked.
And it's possible.
So,
did the
including
Rangers,
Michael Pratt.
Did the Rangers give them anything other than just Lindbergh?
I believe that's all, as I recall. That's all I have written down here in my sheet.
So they didn't give him anything to stay away from certain players.
No draft picks, no nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So apparently that's the player that they wanted off of the Rangers. Interesting.
And that's I actually heard the same thing, that the Rangers, when they expressed the interest that they wanted Oscar Lindbergh, that came from Vegas.
Oh, okay.
And that was what they originally intended and went after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Edmonton Oilers gave up defenseman Griffin Reinhart, former first-round draft pick of the New York Islanders. Montreal gave up defenseman Alexei Emelin, and Anaheim gave up defenseman Clayton Stoner. Minnesota gave up forward Eric Haula, despite the fact Eric Stahl was dangled out there.
Yeah.
And a couple of the other defensemen that they have were dangled out there. But Eric Haula ends up being the player going to Vegas from Minnesota. And I think there was some deals in place there too.
Now,
for
Wayne,
Vegas. Yeah.
Real quick, you mentioned Eric Stahl. I was definitely seeing the news about that and thinking about that. Sounded like Minnesota was ready to deal him. Why do you think that's the case? Here's a guy, they brought him in, touted him heavily, looked like they made the right move because he had a great year, and there they go trying to trade him.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
But he was, I mean, they were basically shopping him.
Because his cap hit's only, what, $3 million?
$3 million a year.
Yeah, which isn't bad for someone who puts up points like he did. Yeah, I'm kind of puzzled why that's the case, unless they know something that we don't, that his production is about to take another nosedive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But there was definitely a side deal in place with Minnesota. There were some draft picks that changed hands there, and of course, we'll get into that when we talk about the transactions. But the reason Eric Haula ended up being the player going from Minnesota, despite there being several different options that I felt were better. But it looks like Minnesota paid to tell or to have Vegas stay away from the core of their team. All right, let's move on to Columbus. William Karlsson, forward, ends up going from Columbus. And Chicago gave up Trevor Van Riemsdyk, defenseman. Mm-hmm. And Pittsburgh gave up goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury. And he has been paraded around Vegas ever since he got picked. He is basically, right now, the face of that franchise. If you had to pick one. Yeah, if you had to pick one player to be the face of the franchise, it's definitely Marc-Andre Fleury right now.
No question about it, and the roar was from the crowd. I mean, they really got into that pick. That's,
and then finally, defenseman Nate Schmidt ends up going from the Capitals to the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, as far as transactions concerning or centered around the draft, centered around the expansion draft, the Golden Knights also acquired defenseman Shea Theodore from the Ducks. They also acquired Buffalo's 2017 sixth-round draft pick. Carolina Hurricanes gave up a fifth-round draft pick, so that was probably payment to stay away from a player or two. I guess it was agreed that the Carolina Hurricanes were going to take Brickley, or the Carolina Hurricanes were going to give them Brickley, and as part of that agreement, a fifth-round pick also went to Vegas. Mm-hmm. So Vegas probably wanted a different player, and they said, "Well, we'll take a pick. We'll take a pick if you give us a weaker player." Essentially. Columbus had a deal with them. The Vegas Golden Knights acquired Columbus's 2017 first-round pick and Columbus's 2019 second-round pick and forward David Clarkson. And David Clarkson is, if you remember, is a guy who's basically on long-term injured reserve, has a big contract. So they took on some salary cap and freed Columbus of some salary cap issues. And that was part of the strategy that Vegas had, was they really loaded up on draft picks through this expansion draft process.
Yeah.
So they certainly didn't pick the best team that they could have picked to put directly on the ice. Yeah. What they did is they essentially set themselves up for the future by they took a bunch of players that either have future trade value, so veterans that they can flip either before the season or at the trade deadline, the next trade deadline next March, or they were taking lesser players than they normally would have because the team that had them was willing to give up either a first-round pick or a second-round pick in a future draft. And it turned out Vegas ended up with 12 picks in this year's draft as a result of all this.
That's right, yeah.
So, and
three first-round picks.
Yeah, 3 first-round picks. So, and one of those was Columbus's pick, and then a second-round pick in 2019 is going to go towards Vegas's way. Now, the Florida Panthers also got forward Riley Smith in exchange for Vegas's 4th-round draft pick as part of the whole deal. Minnesota Wild gave up Alex Tuck in exchange for a conditional 3rd-round pick in either this year or the 18 draft, and I'm not sure if they ended up using that pick in this year's draft or not. I think they put it off till 2018. Vegas Golden Knights acquired Jake Bischoff, Mikhail Grabovski, and New York Islanders 2017 first-round draft pick and the 2019 second-round draft pick as part of the expansion draft. So Vegas really cleaned up on the Islanders.
Yeah, they really did.
They ended up getting 3 players plus 2 picks in the expansion draft.
Yeah,
I'm looking back now. What is the player that went their way?
Berube, the goalie.
Oh, okay.
So they may have been after a higher goalie.
Or one of their forwards.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they really cleaned up on the Islanders. The Penguins, of course, also got Pittsburgh's 2020 second-round draft pick. So maybe they were going to go after one of their forwards too and stay away from Marc-Andre Fleury. But the Pittsburgh Penguins gave him a second-round draft pick in 2020. That's 3 years from now.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. Tampa Bay gave up a second-round pick in this year's draft and a 4th-round pick in next year's draft and the rights to Nikita Gusev.
Yes.
And then Winnipeg gave up a first-round pick in this year's draft and a 3rd-round pick in 2019 in exchange for Columbus's first-round pick in 2017. So basically they swapped first-round picks in this year's draft and then got an additional 3rd-round pick in 2019. So yeah, a lot going on.
It's so confusing. Unless you write it all down, and you may still get tremendously confused about it. That's what I did. I wrote all these trades and stuff down here, but it's mind-boggling.
So, essentially, what I saw is they took their right to 30 players,
right,
one from each team, turned it into essentially they essentially got, I think, 7 extra players out of the whole deal.
Yeah.
So they turned 30 players into 37 players and a whole bunch of extra draft picks.
Yep.
They ended up with 3 first-round picks in this year's draft, and I think a total of 12 picks overall in this year's draft. Plus, they've got extra picks in the next 3 drafts after that. So, the way I saw it, bottom line is Vegas is basically set up their team. They know they're not going to contend this year. Bottom line.
Yeah.
They drafted a whole bunch of guys that only have this remaining year in contracts so that they don't have to keep any of these guys if they don't want to after this year. So they basically made this upcoming year, a throwaway year. And they set themselves up for the future by drafting a whole bunch of kids in this year's draft, setting themselves up with extra picks. The young players they got are going to be good in a couple of years. So Vegas just took a very different strategy to this expansion than they didn't look to get the best team they can get right now. They look to make the best team they can get in 3 years or 4 years.
Well, I agree, because if I look down this list at some of these players like William Carrier out of Buffalo, Thomas Nosek out of Detroit, you go right on down the list, Connor Brickley from the Carolina Hurricanes, they could have done a lot better.
Yep.
They did make some intriguing, very well thought out picks. For example, Jason Garrison from Tampa Bay. That may turn out to be a very good pick and a very good defenseman. Derek Englund, who lives in Las Vegas, that may be a very good pick from Calgary. I was impressed with the pick of Oscar Lindbergh, of course, from the Rangers, as well as Alexei Yemelin, the defenseman from Montreal.
Yep.
Those are players that they chose well, and I'm sure the salary cap came into consideration, as you know, with things, but they made some very intriguing, some very well thought out picks. I thought stuff that I would never have guessed. Overall, I thought they did very well. They've got a good team. They'll be competitive. They may not make the playoffs, but they'll have a competitive team. It's going to be interesting to see who they ship down to Chicago and how they round out their team in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, and I also think that there's a really good chance, or it's almost a sure thing, that a lot of these guys that are on this team right now will not be on that team when the puck drops in the fall. For one, they drafted 14 defensemen. There's no way they're going to have 14 defensemen going into the season.
Right.
So it seems like some of these picks that they picked up are guys that are going to have some sort of trade value either early in the season or at the trade deadline in March. So they picked those guys with that in mind. And generally what teams are looking for as we head towards the trade deadline in particular is everybody's looking for defensemen. Pittsburgh was looking for defensemen. I know Boston was. Everybody's looking for defensemen when they need to make a trade. So it was smart for Vegas to load up on defensemen, knowing that they're going to be able to flip those into future assets. And it's already happened. Mark Mathot was traded, and we'll get to the details on that. And so was
Trevor Van Riemsdyk.
Trevor Van Riemsdyk was already flipped. Yep. So, and those are going to, and I fully expect one of those three goalies will eventually get moved as well, rather than send one to the minor leagues, unless they feel that one of those guys is truly a minor league goalie. But all three were in the NHL all last year, so I don't think for a second that they're going to keep three NHL caliber goalies. They'll try to flip one into draft picks, and I think Berube will be that guy that will be the odd man out, because Pickard is young and can still develop into, he was arguably the best player that Colorado had, or best goalie that Colorado had last year, and know Marc-Andre Fleury is definitely slated to be their starter, so it looks like the Pickard and Fleury will be the two guys in net to start the year, and Berube would only be there as an injury insurance. But I would imagine if they can get something for Berube, he's not going to get a lot for Berube, but something is better than nothing, I guess.
Yeah, I think Wayne, the acquisition of Pickard, as late as the World Championships, really helped his chances. I think Calvin Pickard was really the silver medal that Canada got in that World Championship went a long ways for Calvin Pickard. I think,
and he played well. And he played well towards the end of the year, too, when he was playing regularly for Colorado. So, all right.
I don't think he's the backup. I agree with you.
Yeah, I think Berube is the odd man out there. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, that pretty much does it for the expansion draft. So now Vegas officially has a team.
Right.
They have players. They're in the league. They've rolled out their jerseys. Everything's a go for them. So we are now officially a 31-team league.
That's right.
So there are 31 new, or 23 new jobs anyway, 2 NHL level jobs to be had. So we're going to see a lot of new players this year, I think, as a result. So speaking of new players, let's talk about some of the transactions that have taken place over the last 10 days or so, and there's been a lot. So I'll list them rather quickly here, and stop me if you have any that you want to talk about. And I'm going to go all the way back to June 14th, back when the Washington Capitals acquired Tyler Grovak in a trade with the Minnesota Wild for a 5th-round pick in the 2018 draft. That draft or that trade there basically looked to me like a lot of these ones that took place before the expansion draft were teams that were trying to set themselves up going into the expansion draft to minimize their losses to Vegas. June 15th was one of those, and it was a big trade. Montreal Canadiens acquired Jonathan Drouin and a conditional 6th-round pick in 2018 draft in a trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning for defenseman prospect Mikhail Zerkachev and a conditional 2nd-round pick in the 2018 draft. So I tweeted a couple of opinions on this one. I think Tampa Bay fleeced Montreal on this one. That's just my opinion. Because Sergachev was drafted 9th overall in his draft year. I think it was 2015 or 16. But he was drafted 9th overall. He's a defenseman, which good defensemen are hard to come by. Now, granted, he's only played 4 NHL games in his career. He's just getting started in his career. But for Montreal to trade away... Now, granted, Jonathan Drouin was, I think, 3rd overall the year he got drafted.
Right.
But he's had some issues in Tampa Bay. There was a while there he refused to play for them, didn't want to, or they wanted to send him down for more development, and he didn't want to go, refused to play. You know, he had all those stories that kind of surrounded Jonathan Drouin, basically being a crybaby in my mind. And but last year he got a real good shot in Tampa Bay, played a lot, scored 53, 56 points, something like that.
Had a great year.
Had a basically a breakout year. And he's well on his way to being a real good player. But the way I see it, Sergachev can also be a real good player. And he's a defenseman at that, which seemed to be harder to come by than forwards. So Montreal gives up a real hot prospect defenseman and a 2nd-round pick for a scoring forward. Now, Drouin has played left wing, I think, for the most part in Tampa Bay. He'll be able to play quite a bit of center if they want to make that, because I think he's a natural center. I don't know what Montreal's plan is, if they're going to keep him on the wing or move him to center, but I think in the long run, I think Tampa Bay wins this deal, because obviously it depends on what they turn that 2nd-round pick into. But if that 2nd-round pick turns into a decent NHL player, it just seems to be the classic case of typical Montreal overvaluing the French-Canadian-born players.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
They've always done it. They've always put a premium on those French-Canadian-born players, overvalue them, and sometimes to their detriment. And I think in this case, in the long run, Tampa Bay is going to come out the winner on this trade. I don't know if you had any other...
I just think that Wayne, that Drouin is, he wasn't happy. Maybe they did their best to try and smooth it over and say, hey, let's try and make a go with this guy and get him, bring him back in and let bygones be bygones, you know.
Yep. And this trade also had the added benefit for Tampa Bay, and the added detriment for Montreal is that now that Drouin is on Montreal, they had to protect him, so that made it so they couldn't protect somebody else.
Right.
Like Emelin, for example.
That's good. Hence, Alexei Emelin gets picked.
Yeah, but Sergachev doesn't have to be protected because he's a rookie, so he was exempt. So Tampa Bay wins out on that one. They cut some, and I think Drouin was scheduled to be a restricted free agent, but he eventually signed. But they Tampa Bay wins in all fronts on this, on the money part, on the expansion draft side of it, and long term, I think Tampa Bay. This is a great deal for Tampa Bay, and Montreal fans should. Well, they'll be happy they have a French Canadian player up front for them, but. Otherwise, they should be pissed. Because I think they gave up too much. But who am I? Right? I'm just a typical Bruins fan.
I'm just a little peon here pulling for the New York Rangers.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the next one. Buffalo Sabres acquired Nathan Beaulieu in a trade with the Montreal Canadiens for a 3rd-round pick in the 2017 NHL Draft. That was another one. Beaulieu, I believe, is another defenseman. I don't know what Montreal's doing, dropping all their defensemen. They got rid of Subban. They got rid of this Sergachev, who's a good prospect. Beaulieu was a fixture on their blue line. I don't know what Montreal's going to do in the offseason. I bet they'll be going out looking for a defenseman in the free agent pool.
Guarantee it. Alexei Emelin, he's gone too.
Yep.
He was a top 6.
Yep, so we'll see. And Markov's not getting any older, or younger.
Yep. Sorry about that.
So, anyway, Calgary Flames acquired Mike Smith in a trade with the Arizona Coyotes for Chad Johnson, defenseman prospect Brandon Hickey, and a conditional third-round pick. Arizona's made a lot of deals this week, and moving out Mike Smith, they're moving out a lot of the old, going young. And you'll see it in all the transactions that they've been doing. This team is looking to make a turn, but it looks like Arizona is going to be the youngest team in the league this year, taking that title away from Carolina.
Yeah.
Because they got rid of Mike Smith, and they're also chosen not to sign Doan.
Shane Doan.
Yeah. So Shane Doan won't be back. Mike Smith won't be back. So they're getting rid of all the old wood. They got rid of their coach. They got rid of there's a lot going on in Phoenix, to say the least. So, but this trade there, the Calgary is searching for yet another starting goaltender. They obviously decided that Elliott and Johnson are not going to be their guys this year. They moved Johnson to Arizona, and they've put Mike Smith in as their starter. So we'll see how that turns out for them. New Jersey Devils acquired defenseman Mirko Mueller and a 2017 fifth-round pick in a trade with the Sharks for a second-round and a fourth-round pick in 2017. Not sure what the motivation for Jersey to do that. Probably just to get extra picks in this year's draft. Vegas, let's see. I'm going through the list. There's a bunch of Vegas trades here. Let me skip through all those because we already talked about those. Okay. Carolina Hurricanes acquired defenseman Trevor Van Riemsdyk and a 2018 seventh-round pick from the Vegas Golden Knights for a 2017 second-round pick. So Vegas picks up Van Riemsdyk in the expansion draft and then immediately flips him to the Carolina Hurricanes for an extra second-round pick in this year's draft. It's essentially what that trade is. And at the same time, Carolina adds a veteran defenseman, or quote veteran defenseman, compared to the guys they have. He's a decent defenseman. They'll be adding to their team.
He will be the starter, and he'll get a lot of minutes.
Oh yeah. He'll probably be in the top 4 for sure for Carolina. The Islanders acquired forward Jordan Eberle from the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for forward Ryan Strome. Saw this one coming. I didn't see the Strome part, but I saw the trade of Eberle coming. They've been talking about it for quite some time up there at Edmonton. Eberle was kind of and got the reputation as being a guy who kind of put up a lot of points and did a lot of things when the game really wasn't that intense. But when it came right down to it, he was one of those players that kind of disappeared in big moments.
Right.
I don't think he did
my
anything.
feeling on this is I think they got rid of Jordan Eberle because they need money to sign Mr. Money, Connor McDavid, who very shortly next year, I guess, might be the highest paid player in the NHL.
He probably will be, yeah. But at the same time, there's a lot of fans in Edmonton that are not disappointed to see Eberle go because he did disappear in the playoffs. He was practically invisible. And Ryan Strome is another young player that is yet to be determined what his ceiling will be, and he gets added to the Edmonton Oilers long list of young hot players that they've got. So. All right, Montreal acquired defenseman David Schlemko from Vegas in exchange for a 2019 fifth-round pick. So again, Vegas loading up on extra picks and flipping some of those extra defensemen that they acquired. Pretty straightforward trade there. Arizona acquired defenseman Nicholas Halverson from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for defenseman Connor Murphy and forward Laurent Dauphin. This was a salary dump for Chicago, who's struggling mightily to get under the cap, and they're still not there.
Yeah.
Chicago's a team that probably more than any other team is in salary cap hell, and they're making themselves weaker this year, in my opinion. And it's not their no choice. They have no choice. They have to get themselves under the cap.
Right.
And the only way to do it is dump some of the higher paid players, which obviously are they're better players out there. So,
well, we're getting ready to talk about another one, and quite honestly, I would have done everything I could to kept that guy. But
yeah, well, speaking of the Blackhawks, the Blue Jackets got Artemi Panarin, Tyler Mott, and a 2017 sixth-round pick from the Blackhawks in exchange for Brandon Saad, Anton Forsberg, and a 2018 fifth-round pick.
Right.
So, again, yeah, Panarin is a young player that with still some upside. With Brandon Saad, who's more of a veteran that you pretty much know what you're going to get from him. Of course, Saad played for the Blackhawks.
Yep.
Won two
Stanley Cup.
I think he won 2 Stanley Cups with them.
Yep.
And before they moved him out, and they moved him out initially because of salary cap issues.
Yep.
So this is another one of those cases where Panarin, if he's not into big salary yet, he will be, and they won't be able to afford to keep him on, so they had to move him while they could still get something for him. So this Blue Jackets make out, in my mind, big time on this trade.
Oh, no question.
And of course, as does Arizona, made out on the Harmelson trade. So yeah, seeing all these trades is making Chicago a weaker team, but they didn't have a choice again. Next one is a Rangers trade. They acquired Anthony DeAngelo and the 2017 first-round pick from the Coyotes in exchange for Derek Stepan and Antti Ranta.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Rangers saw somebody in the draft that they really wanted, and they really, I think I read somewhere, their primary goal with this trade was to move up in the draft.
Yes.
And it cost them Stepan and Ranta in order to do so.
Yeah, pay a very dear price. I think the salary cap thing also factors into this, Wayne. They're $20 million under the cap now, and they are going to have someone's going to come in during this free agent extravaganza or whatever you want to call it that's getting ready to. And we don't know who that is, but Ranta was. I just think that him staying in New York as a backup long term, it was never going to. He's good. He could and will be now a starting goalie in the NHL.
Yeah, because right now in Arizona you've got Ranta and Chad Johnson.
Right.
So of the two, I would put Ranta in net. Yeah.
So, but Derek Stepan, that one hurt. That really hurt, and perhaps they are going to see someone come in. Someone may step up for them. I don't know, but.
Well, the talk around the NHL that I've seen anyway is saying that the Rangers are a front runner to get Kevin Shattenkirk, who's going to be one of the better players available in free agency. Mm-hmm. So it almost looks like to me that they're clearing enough cap space in order to be able to afford him.
And then that could be if they're dealing with Washington too, that could be Shattenkirk plus another player.
Well, Shattenkirk's a UFA on July 1st, so they don't even have to talk to Washington. They just wait till July 1st, and if Shattenkirk got his heart set on the Rangers, they're in.
Yeah, that's right.
They'll have to sign him and not give anything to Washington for him.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see in about a week.
We will know next week when we sit down to talk together.
Yep. Yeah, because guys like Shattenkirk will be signed by the time we do our next podcast. All the big names usually go in the first 48 hours of free agency. So, all right, June 23rd, Columbus Blue Jackets acquired Jordan Schroeder from the Minnesota Wild in exchange for Dante Salituro. Not really a big trade in my mind, just a simple swap there. Chicago Blackhawks acquired a 2017 first-round pick and a 2017 third-round pick from the Dallas Stars for a 2017 first-round pick. That was made in the middle of the draft for Dallas to move up in the draft, to move up a few spots. St. Louis Blues acquired forward Braden Shen from the Philadelphia Flyers for forward Yori Laterra, a 2017 first-round pick, and a conditional 2018 first-round pick. So 2 firsts and Laterra for Braden Shen.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a big price to pay for Shen. And they're already talking that the Blues are going to make him their first-line center. So
yeah, that's going to be people will have the microscope out on that one.
Yep.
Watching that trade real closely.
Well, ultimately, what those first-round picks end up being. All right, Pittsburgh Penguins acquired forward Ryan Reeves and a 2017 second-round pick from the St. Louis Blues for forward Oscar Sundqvist and a 2017 first-round pick. So I'm not sure what the motivation was for either team on this one, other than I guess Pittsburgh wanted to get a little tougher. I don't know, because isn't Reeves kind of a grinder type player?
You've got me there.
I'm not familiar with Reeves or Sundqvist, so
yeah. I can't speak intelligent on either one of those guys.
Yep. So we'll see. Philadelphia Flyers acquired 2017 second-round pick from the Arizona Coyotes for a 2017 second-round pick, a 2017 third-round pick, and a 2017 fourth-round pick. So that was, again a mid-draft trade of picks just to move up. And I think the Flyers went for a goalie in that one. If I'm not, I think they ended up picking a goalie with that one. I could be wrong, but I believe that's what they did. I don't have that in front of me. Blue Jackets acquired a 2017 second-round pick from the Golden Knights for forward Keegan Colasar. So Vegas added a player to their pool, and Colasar is a prospect. Edmonton Oilers acquired a 2017 third-round pick from the Arizona Coyotes for a 2017 third-round pick and a 2017 fifth-round pick. Again, mid-season pick trades. Calgary Flames acquired defenseman Travis Hamonic and a conditional fourth-round pick from the New York Islanders for a 2018 first-round pick, 2018 second-round pick, and a conditional second-round pick. So a first and 2 seconds for Travis Hamonic and a fourth.
Yep.
So that really makes Calgary a scary defensive core. To add Hamonic to the players they already have, they already had several of the best defensemen in the league. So Calgary's top four is as good as anybody at this point. All right, San Jose acquired a 2017 fourth-round pick from the Rangers for a 2017 fourth-round pick and a 2017 sixth-round pick. So, again, trade of picks to move up.
Yep.
Blackhawks acquired, this is another one for picks. Blackhawks acquired a fourth round from Vancouver for a fifth round and a sixth round, all in this year's draft. And the Islanders and Kings traded sixth-round picks. The Islanders got this year's sixth for LA's next year's sixth.
Yep.
Montreal acquired similar pick. They got an extra seventh-round pick this year for next year's seventh-round pick from the Flyers. A lot of picks for picks. Sharks got a sixth-round pick from the Devils for two seventh-round picks. So, again, pick for pick. All right, here's the Mark Mathot one. But Dallas Stars acquired defenseman Mark Mathot from the Golden Knights for goalie Dylan Ferguson and a 2020 second-round pick.
Yep.
So, again, Vegas dealing from strength. They had those 14 defensemen. They had to get rid of some of them. I think they're down to 11 now. They've traded 3 away by my count.
Mm-hmm.
They're still down to 11, so there will be more trades to come. But that is all of the trades I have as of right now.
Right.
And let's move on to players that have already signed. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this. All right. Today, today's the 27th, right? Yes. Today, Jake Chelios and Patrick Brown signed with the Hurricanes. Max McCormick signed with the Senators. Eric Gerba signed with the Oilers. These are mostly all restricted free agents that are re-signing. Brett Connolly signed with the Capitals yesterday. Anton Forsberg and Thomas Yurko signed with the Blackhawks. Taylor Fedden signed with the Sabres. Derek Ryan signed with the Carolina Hurricanes. Zach Kassian signed with the Oilers. Mark McNeil and Esa Lindell signed with Dallas. Tom Pyatt signed with Ottawa. Wade Megan signed with St. Louis. Mark Alt with Philadelphia. Gustav Olofsson with Minnesota. Yanni Gorday and Andre Schuster with Tampa Bay. Trevor Carrick with Carolina. Corbinian Holzer with Anaheim. Andy Andreoff with L.A. Ben Chariot with Winnipeg. TJ Oshie with the Capitals. Let me stop on that one. Did you see the terms of this deal?
It's 8 years or something?
8 years, $46 million.
Yeah.
With a cap hit of 5.75 a year.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think they underpaid him.
You think so?
You might not agree with that, but TJ Oshie is definitely he's deserving of that kind of money.
Well, I'd say in the next 3 years, Washington's getting a deal. But years 4 through 8, you don't know what that guy's going to do.
Well,
his play could drop off.
Yeah, it's true.
And if he ends up being, let's say, and we're not wishing him to get hurt, but let's say he ends up being Marian Hossa in a couple of years, where he's either severely reduced or hurt, or that's a different example. Jimmy Hayes. Let's say he turns into Jimmy Hayes. Shows, plays really well for a few years, gets the big contract, and then, his production plummets.
Tanks.
That would be a disaster for Washington if that were to happen. And I don't know. I just see this as the first step in Washington's implosion that is about to happen.
Wow.
I think you're going to see one more good year with Washington, and then the implosion will happen. You watch.
Wow. I don't know. I see this as a good signing. I think TJ Oshie, and I agree, in any contract over 5. But in today's world, maybe anything over 4 years. But you had to sign him if you're Washington, because he's a great player. He is dangerous when we play them. TJ Oshie is a dangerous player. He's good on the power play. He's probably the best shootout artist in the game, and he just as I said, he can beat you in many ways. He's a dangerous threat. I think it's a good signing. You make a good point.
Yep.
3 years, 4 years.
I just think 8 is a little too long, and I just see that it's going to be salary cap hell for Washington down the road.
Yeah.
With a contract like his on the books, unless he continues to produce at the rate he's been producing, then this contract is worth it. But I just don't see him producing at this rate for another 8 years. He'll be 38, 39 years old on the last year of this contract, because I think he's 30 now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll see. I guess on that one, one of us will be right. That's for sure. But I think Washington is reaching the edge of a cliff right now, and I think in one more full year of good productive play from that team, and then I think you're going to see the bottom fall on this team. And I think a lot of that will be Ovechkin too. I think he's destined to fall off a cliff here shortly, and when he does, he's going to hightail it back to Russia pretty quick.
Could be.
So
reading of the tea leaves.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. Chris Russell with the Oilers. Alex Broadhurst with the Blue Jackets. Patrick Eaves signed with the Ducks. Frederick Teffels and Chad Ruedel with the Penguins. Christian Dujos with Capitals. Derek Engelland and Eric Holla with the Vegas Golden Knights. Peter Budaj signed with Tampa Bay. Joakim Ryan, Ryan Carpenter, and Tim Heed all signed with the Sharks. Ludwig Bystrom with the Stars. Nicholas Kardelis with Anaheim. Juahar Kariya with the Oilers. Philip Gustafson with the Penguins. Charles Hudon and Jonathan Drouin with the Montreal Canadiens. And Drouin signs 6 years, $33 million with a cap hit of 5.5. Now, if he develops into the star player that they were touting him to be when he was a junior, Montreal got a steal with this contract.
Yeah.
But time will tell again whether he'll put up the big numbers that he did in juniors. Teuvo Teravainen with the Carolina Hurricanes. Jonas Leitinen with the Predators. Eric Gudbranson with the Vancouver Canucks. Tommy Cross signed with the Bruins. He'll be in the minor leagues. Matt Pumple with the Rangers. I'm not sure where he'll be. It looks like he'll be a minor leaguer too, but $725,000. And I think that's it, because I think we talked about Yannick Weber and Marco Dano in the last podcast.
Yes, we did.
Yep. So that's all the signings that have taken place. And if you want to see details of each of the signings, there's plenty of places you can find that. Cap Friendly is where I got the information, capfriendly.com. That website's getting better and better every day. They keep adding new features to it. We had fun playing with the expansion draft tool on that, which is still working, by the way. I figured they'd turn that off after a while, but you can still do a mock draft or expansion draft if you want. There's a whole bunch of information on capfriendly.com. We love that site for all the information they give you. All right. So we've talked about expansion draft. We've talked about the awards. We've talked about transactions and trades and signings. I guess that leaves us with the NHL Entry Draft.
That does. The NHL Entry Draft.
All right. And, of course, the big names coming out of that entry draft was Nico Hischier and Nolan Patrick. Those were the consensus 1 and 2. Nobody really knew who was going to pick who. And New Jersey had the first pick, and they decided to go with the Swiss-born player, Nico Hischier. And he is the first Swiss-born player to ever get drafted first overall in the draft. And then, of course, the Flyers went with Nolan Patrick. And just give you a quick rundown of the top 10. Dallas Stars went with Miro Heiskanen. I can't say his name. Heiskanen. That's it. Colorado Avalanche went with Cale Makar. Vancouver went with Elias Pettersson. And I've seen tweets and stuff from Vancouver fans. They weren't happy with that pick at all. A lot of Vancouver fans wanted to go with Casey Mittelstadt, but they went with Elias Pettersson instead. Vegas went with Cody Glass as their first ever draft pick. The Rangers went with Lias Andersson. Buffalo ended up with Casey Mittelstadt. He was the top American-born player picked this year. And Detroit went with Michael Rasmussen. And then to round out the top 10, Florida went with Owen Tippett. Now, some other notable picks in the first round. Carolina went with Martin Nekash, Czech-born player, center. And sounds like Carolina's pretty excited about him in the future. So, which is first time in how many years that Carolina has not drafted a defenseman in the first round. There were Carolina fans that were going to... We're about ready to physically remove Ron Francis as GM of the Carolina Hurricanes if he went out and drafted yet another defenseman. But no, he goes with a center this time around. Vegas Golden Knights went with Nick Suzuki. Suzuki is a player that is expected to do very well. Tampa Bay drafted Adam Foote's kid, Cal Foote. Let's see, other notables. Boston Bruins went with Urho Vakanainen, defenseman, and he was one of the top 10 European-born players in the Central Scouting Bureau. So I was pretty excited about that one. Bruins add, because that's one of their areas of need is defense. Sounds like, though, he's a stay-at-home defenseman. He's not a flashy offensive style defenseman in the way that a PK Subban or even McAvoy is, but he'll be more of a stay-at-home guy. The Rangers went with Philip Chytil. Is that how you say his name?
That's how I would say. Chytil.
Okay. He's a forward from the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Other notables, the Edmonton Oilers went with Kyler Yamamoto. I was hoping the Bruins would take him. He is the smallest player ever to be drafted in the NHL, according to some reports that I saw. He is only 5'7.5", 145 pounds.
God.
But they say he is lightning fast. Think Johnny Gaudreau, that type of player.
Yeah.
That's the kind of player that the Edmonton Oilers got in Yamamoto. Let's see. The first goalie taken this year was to Dallas, who took Jake Ottinger, the BU goaltender, and they're expecting big things out of him, although I doubt he'll leave BU this year. He'll probably stay at BU at least one more year. Although, I don't know why Dallas would pick a goaltender. They just signed Ben Bishop for how many years?
Yeah, they signed into a major contract.
Yeah. So,
and they also paid off Antti Niemi.
Yeah, they did. Yep, they're going to buy him out. It's true.
Yep.
Let's see. Who else do we want to mention here? A lot of Finn players this year. I think the Finnish-born players set a record on how many players they got. Did the Rangers have a second-round pick? I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, we had actually no, we did not. We did not have a second-round pick, and we did not have a third-round pick.
See, the Hurricanes had 2 second rounds.
They did.
Eetu Luostarinen, center from Finland, and Luke Martin, defenseman from the USA. The Bruins picked Jack Studnicka, another center. I think the Bruins only had the 1 second-round pick. And then the Hurricanes had a third-round pick, Martin Geekie, a center/right wing. Morgan Geekie, sorry. Carolina also had another third-round pick, Stelio Mattheos. Carolina had a lot of picks in this year's draft. And I know they were trying to trade some of them, but they weren't able to get all of them. And I know Boston didn't have a third-round pick either. And the last one I want to talk about is, just because it's got a University of Maine tie, Jeremy Swayman, goaltender, got drafted by the Boston Bruins in the 4th round. So those of you who are Boston fans in the Boston area, you'll get a chance at seeing Swayman either when he comes down to play the Boston teams, which will happen several times throughout the year, or you can go on and take a ride up to Orono and watch him play in his home rink, because he'll be playing for the University of Maine this fall. So I know all the Maine fans up there are very excited to see him come to town. It's been a while since they've had a goalie prospect playing for them. I think Ben Bishop was the last one. They've had many. Ben Bishop, Scott Darling, Jimmy Howard in Detroit. Going way back, Garth Snow, who's the GM of the Islanders. John Tortorella was a goaltender at Maine. Of course, that was way, way back. Who else? Mike Dunham was teammates with Garth Snow. Mike Dunham is a goalie coach. I think he's still the goalie coach of the Islanders, but he played several years in the NHL. Maine's put out a lot of goalies in the past. So hopefully Swayman will be the next one in a long line of great goalies to go through Maine. So unless you had anything else about the draft, I mean, once you get past the third round, it's pretty much a crapshoot. If you look back at the
and this draft, as opposed to last year's draft, you really only had a few players that it just wasn't as there just wasn't as much talent, people are saying, as in previous draft, the previous draft, 2016.
Well, there's no generational talent is the term I kept hearing about this draft.
Right.
So you don't have a Connor McDavid, you don't have an Austin Matthews. These franchise players that we've been fortunate enough to have in the last 2 or 3 drafts just haven't been there.
Right.
And they're saying that this draft doesn't attain. There's a lot of solid NHL level talent in this draft, just no headliners, I guess.
That's right.
But they're talking about next year's draft is possibly going back to a really, really good one.
Mm-hmm.
The early reports of next year's class. So I guess we'll see how this is going to go. I don't see but maybe a handful of these guys making their teams this fall. I don't see any of the Carolina Hurricanes players making it this fall, or the Bruins. I don't know about the Rangers, but
the only possibility is Lias Andersson, and they said that he may be a top 6 player. He won't be the best player on your team, but that he will, possibly develop into a top 6 player.
Yeah.
But
it won't be this year.
Whether or not he makes the team is a big if.
Yeah.
So.
And I know Boston doesn't expect any of their players to make the team this year. They've got enough talent because they've had 9 picks in the first 2 rounds in the last 2 years. Boston has. Mm-hmm. And all those players are starting to come through the system, and they're all going to be fighting for. So you're going to see a much younger Boston Bruins team this year, and especially next year, than you've been seeing in the past several years. So all these guys that they got in this year's draft, these are kind of guys that you just kind of you got them, set them aside, come back in 3 years and see how they're doing.
Yeah.
That's kind of how this draft has been, at least for the Bruins anyway. All right, so now that the entry draft is all done, the biggest thing with the entry draft is they're all 18-year-old kids, so you can't really – it's not like the NBA where they come into the league ready to play day one. Most of the NHL kids that get drafted need some seasoning before they're ready for the big time. So,
yep.
All right. Let's talk about some Hall of Fame inductees. First, we'll get our builders out of the way because they don't get the headlines very much, so we'll put them in there. But first one I want to talk about, Claire Drake was elected to the Hockey Hall of Fame in the builders category on Monday, and you could practically hear the entire hockey coaching fraternity cheering. Drake, who's 88 years old, was the coach of the University of Alberta Golden Bears for 28 years before leaving the school in 1989. And he won 6 University Cup championships and, perhaps more importantly, influenced hockey coaches around the world with his innovative tactics and teaching techniques. He also coached the Edmonton Oilers during the 75-76 WHA season and was a Winnipeg Jets assistant in 89-90. Washington Capitals coach Barry Trotz, Dallas Stars coach Ken Hitchcock, and Toronto Maple Leafs coach Mike Babcock are all among those who consider Drake a mentor and a huge influence in their own coaching style. So, kind of a lesser-known personality in the hockey world, but getting his due and getting the props that many people thought he should have had. I was unaware of him, at least until this came about, but obviously several NHL coaches think that he was a big part of their success, so kudos to him. The other builder is Boston Bruins owner Jeremy Jacobs.
Yeah, you got to be happy with that.
He was elected to the Hockey Hall of Fame as a builder. Jacobs has been the owner since 1975 and has been chairman of the NHL Board of Governors since 2007. Jacobs oversaw the Bruins' return to the heights of the NHL when they won Stanley Cup in 2011 by defeating the Vancouver Canucks. becoming champions for the first time since 1972. And he said it was a total surprise. I'm humbled and very appreciative. Under Jacobs, the Bruins have been a consistent present in the Stanley Cup playoffs from 67-68 through 95-96. The Bruins made the playoffs 29 straight seasons. And with Jacobs serving as the owner for 21 of those seasons, in his 41 seasons of ownership, the Bruins have made the playoffs 34 times. So a lot of long-time success with Jeremy Jacobs. But there's going to be a lot of Bruins fans out there, particularly the older ones, that are going to be like, really? What did he do to deserve this? Even though the Bruins made the playoffs all those years, Jacobs, for a long, long time, had the reputation, pretty much right up until the salary cap was implemented, as being a tightwad, as being a guy with...
I've always heard that.
Yeah. As being a guy that always had the money, and basically being in Boston, and as popular as the Bruins are in Boston, could pretty much print money to pay players, but refused to do so until the salary cap got implemented. And ever since then, he's been putting a emphasis on winning. Now, he was a big proponent of the salary cap. He was one of the main guys behind pushing that to go through. Obviously, being the chairman of the board of directors since 2007, he's a pretty powerful guy in all of the hockey world, not just the Bruins. I would say he deserves being there. I mean, he's been... How many owners have owned their teams longer than him at this point? 41 years is a long time to own a team.
Sure is. Yep.
So, and, you can say he changed the game by being one of the prime people behind implementing the salary cap. And basically once the owners were able to get that cost certainty where they know how much they're going to spend each year, and they knew that salaries weren't going to balloon out of control like they have in other sports, then Jeremy Jacobs said, okay, we are going to spend to the cap every year. And the Bruins have done that for the most part. Mm-hmm. And they continue to put a competitive team on the ice. They know they're going to sell every seat in the building every game, no matter what. There's been very few years in the past, probably the lean years of the late 90s when they stopped making the playoffs every year. In fact, they ended up finishing dead last one year. That's how they got Joe Thornton. So yeah, he's a major player in the off-ice part of the game for sure. So kudos to him for getting in the Hall of Fame. All right, let's move on to the players. We'll start with the female player, Danielle Goyette. She won three Olympic medals, gold at the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics and the 2006 Turin Olympics, and silver at the 98 Nagano Olympics, and 7 golds and 1 silver playing for Canada at the IIHF World Women's Championship. I wonder who won the gold in all those years she got the silver. Women's hockey right now is pretty much a 2-team race, and always it has been since day one. Canada and the USA. But yeah, she was a fixture on the national team for years and years and years. So she's definitely a legend in the women's hockey world. And ever since they started, they've been doing that for several years now. They've been adding at least one woman to the Hall of Fame class. Because remember, the Hockey Hall of Fame is the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's not the NHL Hall of Fame.
Right.
So
that's right.
Now, to NHL players, Teemu Selanne, Dave Andreychuk, Mark Recchi, and Paul Kariya are your class for this year. And, of course, Selanne, who set the NHL rookie record with 76 goals back in 92-93 and has 684 goals in his 21-season career, was basically a first ballot Hall of Famer. This was his first year eligible, got right in. So no-brainer there.
Right.
And he also, that year that he scored 76 goals, he also got 132 points, which is also the record for an NHL rookie, and neither of those records has even been approached. So, and of course, he went on to a great long career. Won one cup? I know he won Anaheim. Was that his only one?
Anaheim 2007. I believe that's the only one.
Yep. All right. Dave Andreychuk, who was the captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning when they won their only Stanley Cup championship in 2004, was the only retired player with at least 600 goals that was not in the Hall of Fame. This was his 9th year of eligibility, and he finally got in. So kudos to him. Mark Recchi is a 3-time Stanley Cup winner with 3 different teams in 22 NHL seasons. And you know the teams that he won the cup with?
One. I know you won it with the Boston Bruins.
One with the Bruins, one with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Yep, the year they won the Cup, he was on the team. And then, of course, back in the day with Pittsburgh Penguins. He never won one with the Flyers, even though he played a good chunk of his career with the Flyers.
Yeah, interesting. That's interesting.
And he is the 12th highest scorer in league history with 1,533 points. And this was his 4th year of eligibility. And he's the only retired player to score more than 500 goals and finish his career with more than 1,500 points, who was not yet in the Hall of Fame. And the last one, which I was very happy to see, Paul Kariya. He was a 3-time member of the NHL First All-Star Team who finished his NHL career as a point-per-game player with 989 points in 989 games with the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, Colorado Avalanche, Nashville Predators, and St. Louis Blues. He was captain of the Ducks from 96-97 through 2002-2003. And helped them advance to the 2003 Stanley Cup Final, where they lost to the Devils in 7 games. He also helped Canada win the gold at the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics. Kariya and Selanne played together with the Ducks from 96 through 2001 and with the Avalanche in 2003-2004. So he gets to go in alongside his good friend, Selanne. A lot of people would argue that Kariya doesn't deserve it based on A, he never won the Cup, and 2, his career was shortened by injury. He had a lot of concussion issues. But I, for one, am very happy that he got in. He'll be the first, or he is the first UMaine player to get elected to the NHL or the Hockey Hall of Fame. So.
Oh, okay, very good. Very good.
So, and I still remember, just a side note, I thought of it the other day, and I wanted to add it to the. I remember when I first started working at the arena at the University of Maine, when I was going to school there. It was probably, I don't know, 2nd, 3rd, 4th day of work, whatever. We went out. It was early in the season. The ice hadn't yet been put down. Back in those days, they put the ice down basically at the last possible minute, right before the team was eligible to start practicing. And they took the ice out right after they got eliminated from play, in the playoffs. Whenever their season ended anyway. As soon as that last game, the ice would go out because the floor had issues in that building, in that old building. If the ice stayed down too long, the floor would begin to buckle. It was a problem. So they could only keep ice just the short season. But anyway, the ice was yet to be laid down. It was just bare concrete floor. Me and a couple of other guys that were working there were going out onto the ice, and we're going out to do some repair work on the boards and glass. Okay, there's this kid out there. They had a net down at the far end. The Zamboni entrance is on the end in the corner at that building. At the far end is where we're doing our work. Well, down there's a net set up on the concrete floor, one of the practice nets. And we go out there, and there's this short, skinny, little Asian dude out there shooting. I'm wondering who this kid is, and I asked one of the guys, who's this guy? Out there he was just practicing his shooting, right? Nobody knew outside of probably hockey scouts who this kid was. He was an incoming freshman. That's all we knew. They weren't even sure he was going to make the team. At least the guys I was working with, that he was, because Maine was famous for that day of carrying 35 players on their roster, 10 of which were redshirt freshmen that weren't even going to play their first year. Their practice. But they weren't going to play until their second year because they always the coach at the time always wanted their players to redshirt a year if they, to help them develop into help with that transition from high school. Back then it was pretty much high school to college. Nowadays the players go high school, juniors, then college. So they get that transition in juniors. Well, back then they'd use the red shirts. They'd redshirt 10 or so players a year. So there's this short, he was my height or maybe even an inch smaller than me. Short little Asian dude, skinny. He wasn't very strong at that point. He's only 18 years old, barely 18 years old. I think he had just turned 18 at the time. And he's out there just practicing his shooting while we're out there working on the glass. Little did I know that short little Asian dude out there shooting on a goal on a concrete floor would turn out to be a Hall of Famer in the a hockey Hall of Famer.
That is some kind of story.
Yeah,
that is amazing.
So
wow.
He was a nice kid, quiet kid. He was very shy in college. So, but yeah. And that was the year that they went 42-1-2 in the NCAA and went all the way through and won the national championship that year. So, but it was late August, early September is when we were doing all this before the season even got going. All right, enough storytelling. All right, let's take a look at... So congratulations to everybody who made it to the Hall of Fames, by the way.
Yes.
Let's take a look at RFAs, restricted free agents that were not tendered a qualifying offer. And I'm not going to list them all because most of them are like minor leaguers, prospects that never really developed, that kind of stuff. Basically, the bottom line is if you're a player, a restricted free agent, and they had until yesterday at 5 o'clock the teams did, to tender them a qualifying offer, which basically is them telling everybody that they intend to sign this player or re-sign this player. And if they don't tender them a qualifying offer, they become part of the unrestricted free agent pool. So there were a couple of notables that I saw that did not get a qualifying offer. And there's one big one that jumped out at me big time. For one, before I get to the guy I'm thinking of, Landon Ferraro was a prospect. That's Ray Ferraro's kid. He did not get a qualifying offer from the St. Louis Blues, which I thought was kind of interesting since the Bruins had him for a while and they hated to get rid of him, or at least at the time they didn't want to get rid of him. Now I'm not seeing the one that I don't know if you've got the list up. Nail Yakupov is the name I saw.
Right.
Oh wait, I'm not even on the right. I'm not even in the right report.
Hang on.
Free agents. Here we go. Yeah. Anyway. Nail Yakupov was the one name that jumped out at me that did not get a qualifying offer. Here's a guy who was the first overall pick, 4 years ago? 5 years ago?
Yeah.
First overall pick by the Edmonton Oilers. And not only the Oilers trade him last year to, maybe a change of scenery would jumpstart that guy, but not only that is the St. Louis Blues decided not to give him a qualifying offer, which means Nail Yakupov joins the unrestricted free agent list and is available to anyone who wants him now, effective July 1st.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, he really has taken and I'm looking down this list. I don't see him on there, but...
He was on there last night.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah, he did not. Yeah, in fact, there's a note. I'm looking at the list of the players that did receive a qualifying offer.
Oh, they did receive a qualifying offer. Okay.
Yep.
Then that's
on NHL.com, and that list, under St. Louis, you have Magnus Pajärvi, Oscar Sundqvist, Colton Parayko, Patry Lindholm, and Jordan Binnington all received qualifying offers. And then right under that it says, note, the Blues did not extend a qualifying offer to forward Nail Yakupov, the number 1 overall pick in the 2012 NHL Draft.
That's something.
So that was the one. And, of course, if you want to see who got a qualifying offer and who didn't, you can go. Cap Friendly is a good place to find that. Also, EliteProspects.com is another place that you can get that information. But, yeah, that was the biggest one that jumps out there. And all the rest of the names are all, like I said, are guys that are, you're not going to get any future Art Ross Trophy winners out of that group of players.
Right.
And I know Boston chose not to sign several players, but they have to make room for all these young guys coming up. But the Bruins did give a qualifying offer to Noel Acciari, Linus Arneson, Austin Czarnik, Zane McIntyre, David Pastrnak, Tim Schaller, Ryan Spooner, and Malcolm Subban. So they intend to sign all of those guys in free agency. Carolina gave a qualifying offer to Phil DiGiuseppe, Brock McKinnon, Jake Chelios. And the Rangers gave qualifying offers, according to this article, is not yet announced.
Right.
So they were supposed to have those in by 5 o'clock last night. And then the players have until July 15th to accept the qualifying offer or refuse. So, and the bottom line is if with restricted free agents, technically teams have the ability to make an offer sheet to any restricted free agent. Mm-hmm. However, it's extremely rare for that to happen because when they do go after a restricted free agent from another team, the team that used to have them automatically gets compensation for that, mm-hmm. for that signing. Let's say, for example, for the Boston Bruins, the biggest name in their restricted free agent pool is David Pastrnak, right? Had a great year last year. Probably one of the better restricted free agents available this summer. Let's say the Rangers, for example, want David Pastrnak. Go ahead and extend him an offer sheet. First of all, the Bruins have a right to match that and then retain that player for that price, whatever that offer is. But if the Bruins decide not to match that, they can let Pastrnak go, and then they get compensation. And the compensation package is already laid out according to several factors, statistics, and where they were. There's a system in place that both teams know exactly what the compensation would be if the player is let go to the new team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those compensation packages, and the reason that it's so rare that teams sign restricted free agents is that those compensation packets are so ridiculous. A guy like David Pastrnak, and I haven't looked it up, but I would be willing to bet it would be first round, like 3 first rounds and a second would be the compensation for the Bruins for David Pastrnak. So the Rangers would be crazy to make an offer sheet to that guy because they would lose that many picks.
They'd lose their future.
Yeah.
On one player.
On one player. And they would have to sign him at a high enough rate that they know, because the only reason the Bruins wouldn't match it is if it would put them over the cap.
Right.
So if the Bruins are tight against the cap, they've got David Pastrnak out there. Let's say the Bruins have $5 million in cap space. Rangers offer him $6 million a year. Well, the Bruins can't match that, so they have to let him go.
Right.
So the player ends up getting overpaid, and then the team that loses a restricted free agent gets so much in compensation, ridiculous amount in compensation that it's extremely rare. I don't recall seeing a restricted free agent changing teams in recent history.
Well, this brings up my point with Connor McDavid, okay? And for some reason, in my knuckleheaded mind, I thought he was a restricted free agent at the end of this year.
I think at the end of this upcoming season, he's at restricted.
At the end of this upcoming season.
Yeah.
And, okay, the article that I read was like, he's going to command the largest, he's going to be paid more money than anybody in the NHL.
I saw a number of $14 million.
That's what I saw. Yeah. $14 million per season.
Is what people are expecting him to make.
Right. Now, does he pull a Sidney Crosby and say, no, pay me, $9.9 million or $9.7 million after his number for 15 seasons or what? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does he do that? Because Sidney Crosby took less money than what he could have when he signed his contract.
He did. Yep.
Takes a bullet for the team is how the article read. I don't know. You're reading in between the lines. He's a humble guy. God almighty, he's a humble guy for the talent that he has. He is a tremendously humble person. At least that's what my thinking on it is. And I just see him as, here's a guy that's walking around. He could get $14 million right this very second after cleaning up the hardware at the NHL Awards ceremony.
Yep.
And it was very interesting during this segment of the show. I just wanted to get your feeling on it as to whether Edmonton, as they are right now, Chiarelli being a former Boston Bruin guy, how they would look at this, and what is your gut telling you?
Well. A lot depends on what Connor McDavid wants. I mean, if he wants to go, break the bank, he's shooting himself in the foot if he wants to win. So ultimately, the player has to choose whether he wants to win or if he wants to get paid. Because in this salary cap era, you almost can't have both.
Well, that's a very, very good point.
Because if you ask for too much money, then the team can't put a good team around you. But if you take less money, they can get better players to surround you, which is why Pittsburgh is so good. Because Crosby should be a $12 million player, but he's only getting paid $8.7. So because if Kane and Taves are good for $10.5 each, then Crosby's at least a 12.
No question. Question about it.
But Crosby's obsession with the number 87 even goes right to his contract, where he gets paid $8.7 per year. So he gets a nice hometown discount that the Pittsburgh Penguins have been able to. Well, of course, they've been able to finagle that into 2 Stanley Cups. So,
and he's made up for it many times over in endorsements. So it's not with him, it's a drop in the bucket, his salary. But I just, after seeing this guy clean up the hardware at the trophies at the NHL Awards ceremony, I just see him as being able to command a tremendously high number, and it's going to be interesting to watch. And I thought it was this offseason, but I think you're right. I think it's next offseason.
No, he's entering in the last season of his entry-level deal, so it'll get expensive for Edmonton after this year. I think he'll come out the highest-paid player in the NHL next fall. So the list, I've got links in the show notes to all the restricted free agents that have both been tendered and not tendered a qualifying offer. So, and then as far as unrestricted free agents, this is what's going to be happening starting July 1st. Let me just run down real quick because we got to get the show moving. The top players that are going to be available in unrestricted free agency. You've got Kevin Shattenkirk, Radim Verbata, Alex Radulov, Joe Thornton, Sam Gagner, Justin Williams, Thomas Vanek, Patrick Marleau, Jaromir Jagr, although I think he'll ultimately resign with Florida. Mike Fisher, who will probably end up in Nashville. Martin Hanzal, Chris Versteeg, Nick Bonino, Andrei Markov, Brian Giunta, Matt Cullen, Chris Kunitz, P.A. Parento, Shane Doan, Mark Streit, Jerome McGinley, Mike Ribeiro, Brian Boyle, Daniel Winnick, Dominic Moore. So, and then they go down from there. Pretty much role players from here on out. In terms of top defensemen that I haven't mentioned yet, Trevor Daley, Matt Hunwick, Cody Franson, Francois Beauchemin, Dennis Weidman, Michael Del Zotto, who I've heard the Bruins are possibly looking into, Ron Hainsey, Brian Campbell, Nikita Nesterov. So kind of a weaker free agent class this year overall. Mm-hmm. But probably Shattenkirk is probably the biggest name available in my mind. Obviously, time will tell what's going to happen. But those are the names that you're going to be seeing starting July 1st, signing with new teams or not new teams.
Right.
Some of those guys will decide they like where they are and will go back to the team they had before. So, but as of right now, pretty much nothing happens till July 1st. It should be pretty quiet until then.
I agree.
So. All right. And then the next thing that's also happening in addition to July 1st is almost every team is going to be having player development camps. I know the Bruins is July 6th through 9th, I think. Mm-hmm. Carolina's is actually starting tomorrow night, and I'm very strongly thinking about going tomorrow night. I get out of work at 3 tomorrow, so I'm thinking of going to Raleigh tomorrow night to watch that. It's free to the public. Anybody can go and just go watch them. They're practicing tomorrow night, Thursday night. Friday, the practice is closed to the public, but you can watch it streamed online. And then Saturday, they're having a prospects game. I believe that game is at noon. And all of that's open to the public, and I believe all of it is free. So if you got some time off and you're local to the Carolina, you can swing on down there and take a look at the prospects. And they're saying that all 10 players that the Carolina Hurricanes drafted will be in attendance, in addition to several draft picks that are yet playing for the you're not going to see any Jeff Skinners, Noah Hannafins, those kind of players there. These prospect development camps are all prospects that either have played less than 10 games with the team or haven't played for the team at all yet.
In the case of Skinner and Justin Falk, they'll be at Moe's.
Right.
For free queso.
So, Steve, if you want to go down, we can go down tomorrow night.
Oh, man.
Go to Moe's and then go to the prospect camp. All right. So the schedule has come out for next year. So if you want to see what your team is going to do, all the schedules have been posted, at least on every team website that I've gone to in the last several days. You can see the next year's schedule. But just some local highlights for us, Steve. The home opener for the Hurricanes is the 7th. The last home game will be on the 7th of October. Last home game will be on the 7th of April. They have the Rangers at home on November 22nd and March 31st.
Yep. And
they have the Bruins at home on March 11th. And I'm excited about that because I know you've seen my jersey. I get to wear my green jersey that night.
Oh, yeah. That's St. Patrick's Day.
3 days before St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to wear my green Bruins jersey that night.
Holy smokes.
Great timing, huh?
Yeah, it is perfect timing, Wayne. I have already sat down with my wife, and we've been going over the dates and stuff. What an exciting time when that schedule comes out.
Yep.
I sit there and look at all the games. My goodness, when are they playing? Vegas? What are ticket prices? No. But, that kind of stuff goes on. And
they've got, speaking of Vegas, other notable home games against, at least teams that went deep in the playoffs. Anaheim on October 29th, Nashville November 26th, Pittsburgh on the 29th of December. That's the only date I've got, but I know they play them more than once at home. Washington on January 2nd and January 12th.
Right.
Vegas, January 21st. I fully intend to go to that game. I want to see Vegas play.
There is a second game, Wayne. Pittsburgh, February 23rd.
That's when it is. Yep. Oh, there it is. February 23rd. And then the Edmonton Oilers on March 20th. Those are all games that I'm intrigued and may possibly go take a peek at if I can get the time to go.
Yeah.
Carolina's bye week is the 15th through the 19th of January. I know the Bruins, I think, is the week before that. I'm not sure when the Rangers bye week is.
It
seems like this year...
8th through the 12th. The 8th through the 12th of January.
Seems like this year they shortened the bye weeks. And I know the CBA mandates 5 days minimum, but most of the breaks that I've seen are exactly 5 days.
Yeah.
So
and the schedule changes this year, Wayne, because of the Vegas Golden Knights. Each team in the NHL will now play in the Eastern Conference will now play 30 games when they play the Western Conference during the season. They'll get those 2 games from the team in their division that they were the teams that usually they played 5 times in one season.
Oh, okay.
For example, last year we played the Columbus Blue Jackets 5 times, 3 times in Columbus.
Now you only play
games, now that they play each team in their own division a total of 4 times, which would be 28 games.
Yep.
For the Atlantic teams and the guys in the Metro divisions, the same way.
Good.
So it works out even.
Yep. All right. Some other stories that I saw come across my wire. The Rangers are expected to hire former Dallas Stars coach Lindy Ruff as an assistant. The New York Post reported on Saturday Ruff would replace Jeff Bukaboom, who's expected to move into a scouting role on Coach Alain Vigneault's staff. Ruff, who's 57, was fired by the Stars on April 9th after they failed to make the playoffs one season after finishing with the best record in the Western Conference. So Rangers will have 2 head coaches.
Yeah.
My first instinct was, is Vigneault's job on the line? Because it's almost like they're getting ready to... they got Ruff right there. They can fire Vigneault at any time and make Ruff the coach.
Well, I guess that's possible. Lindy Ruff was a former New York Ranger. He used to play hockey for the New York Rangers.
Yep.
He's involved in that organization, and he was coach of the Sabres for many years as well. I kind of think that the Rangers did this. What do I know? I'm sitting here in my office. I have no clue, but I think Vigneault is safe. I think they're gonna give him one more shot. I would think to try and a year or 2 get to the Eastern Conference Finals with what we've got, and see if we can do it. And if we can, it doesn't matter whether it's bad luck that we lose out, or it's not going to matter. He maybe has one more shot to go to the Eastern Conference Finals if we can get there, and give him his chance.
Yep.
That's the way I see it. If we advance to the Stanley Cup Finals, he probably serves out his contract. So
seems like they just built in insurance in case Vigneault they have to make a move there, but who knows. We'll see. Either way, it'll be good to have Ruff on hand. He'll be a
nice you have Scotty Arniel, who's also an assistant coach with the Rangers, and he was the coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets.
True.
So you have some good coaches. Sometimes.
Yep. All right. Well, the next story I have: Dave Tippett has agreed to leave as coach of the Arizona Coyotes. It was announced on Thursday after some thoughtful discussions with owner Andy Barroway. We both agreed that it was best for me to move on, Tippett said in a statement issued by the team. Okay. So basically the bottom line there is, sounds like there was some philosophical differences between Tippett and Barroway on the direction of the basically the direction of the team. So now the Coyotes have no coach, they have no captain, they have no starting goalie.
That's right.
They have
right down the list.
I mean, some major. It's going to be an interesting season in Arizona. So at least they have a single owner that's in control of that team at this point for the first time in who knows how long. So it looks like Arizona's in for a rough season. They've gotten a lot younger. They're making a lot of moves. So we'll see. We'll see how they end up doing. I personally predict them to be going for They'll be going for a lottery pick this year for sure.
Right.
At least in my mind. All right. Have you seen the new jerseys yet?
Yes. Of Vegas Golden Knights?
All the league. Adidas unveiling their whole set of jerseys. Every team in the league is going to have quote-unquote new jerseys. They changed over from Reebok to now they're going to be Adidas jerseys. Mm-hmm. And every team, the Bruins really haven't made much of a change. They changed a little bit on the lettering to make the numbers jump out a little bit more off the jersey, the numbers and the lettering on the back. But the front of the jersey looks exactly the same. The Rangers, I don't believe, made any real changes to their jersey, other than the fact that they're Adidas jerseys. And supposedly the jerseys are lighter. They retain less water and just overall, new fabrics, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But not many teams did. And I guess there's not going to be any third jerseys this year. They're just going with a straight up home and away. Carolina made some changes to their jersey. They brought back the hurricane warning flags that are at the bottom of the jersey. It's a little more subtle now. It's not red and black. It's like two shades of red, one darker than the other. And then they've brought black back into as one of the colors on the jerseys. So Carolina is probably one of the few jerseys that changed quite a bit. So so just a note on that: if you're into jerseys, your team is going to have a new look this year, possibly.
What did you think of Vegas's jersey?
Not bad. I mean, it's colors that we haven't seen before. That metallic gold is going to be be interesting.
Yeah,
I could see them coming. I could see them coming out with a third jersey that the primary color is that metallic gold. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. The red stripe on those jerseys on the arm is really neat. It kind of stops the, it
would look kind of boring.
Yeah.
If they didn't have that splash of red in there. Of course, the red, it's not in their main logo, but it is in their secondary logo that's on the shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Going to be interesting to see those guys playing. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. All right, and as part of the end of season awards, of course the NHL does their first and second team All-Stars each year, and this year the first team All-Star is Connor McDavid, defenseman Brent Burns, left wing Brad Marchand, right wing Patrick Kane, and defenseman Erik Karlsson, and goaltender Sergei Bobrovsky. That's your first team All-Star. Your second team All-Star is Sidney Crosby at center, followed by Alex Ovechkin, Jaromir Jagr, which is interesting pick, and Zdeno Chara, and Nikita Kucherov, and Artemi Panarin, defenseman Victor Hedman, Duncan Keith, and goaltender Braden Holtby. So those are your first and second team All-Stars for this year. And, of course, along with that, they have an all-rookie team that they announced, and that is, of course, the Calder winner, let's see, Patrick Laine, Austin Matthews, Zach Werenski, Mitch Marner, Brady Shea, and Matt Murray were the all-rookie team. So got a Ranger in there.
That is.
No Buchnevich, but
no Buchnevich.
But Brady Shea made it.
Jimmy Vesey.
Yep. Now, and the last story I've got is about the possibility of future expansion. Apparently, Gary Bettman was asked earlier this week on what the plan is for future expansion, and basically he said right now there is no current plan for future expansion. So, which to me I see as, I think he's going to wait and see how certain markets play out.
Right.
Obviously, you've got Carolina, who's rumored to be having issues, which I don't buy, but Florida is now rumored to be having issues, and of course Arizona. So right. I think the league at this point is going to stand pat where they are. Wait and see how some of these weaker markets pan out to see if the fans come back when the product on the ice gets better, as we have been loudly proclaiming. And then, go from there, because there's two cities in particular, Quebec and Seattle, that are both desperately wanting a team. And but right now, according to Gary Bettman, nothing is going to happen anytime soon, is pretty much the general gist of that. But I've got a link in the show notes if you want to hear the full 15-minute press conference where he talked about that. And the last story I've got for tonight is Marian Hossa. Did you see how he probably won't be playing at all this year?
I did.
Because he's having this allergic reaction. Yeah, allergic reaction to his equipment, which is, I guess, highly unusual. I've never seen it before. So that'll be another blow to Chicago. I think Chicago comes back down to earth this year with all the issues they've been having.
Well, they might. I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh steps back a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the loss of Fleury, of course, they were going to, you and I talked about, they had to give up something.
Yep.
I think that's going to hurt. You saw the picture of Evgeny Malkin.
Yeah.
Those guys are good friends.
Yep.
And with Fleury, his goaltender for many years.
Yeah, I'll be sure to watch when Vegas plays Pittsburgh. I'll be sure to watch those 2 games for sure this year.
Yeah.
Especially the one where Fleury comes back to Pittsburgh.
It'll be interesting. It really will be.
That will be fun to watch.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's all we have for this week, unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, you
it's been a lot.
Touched on it all, Wayne.
Yep, and our next show
There's a lot to talk about this week.
Yep, but our next show will pretty much be exclusively talking about free agents and what's been happening, because at or around July 5th will be our next show, and that will be 4 days into free agency. By then, most of the big names will be off the board, and we will have plenty to talk about there. And that's pretty much all, other than that and player development camps. And if I do end up going to Raleigh, I will bring back plenty of news about the Hurricanes on that front. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. And again, if you want to interact with us, you can tweet me. I'm at Wayne Halley. Steve is at SBall504Man. Reach us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/thehockeynuts. And thehockeynuts.com/YouTube is our YouTube channel. If you want to support us financially, we actually have a way to do that. We have affiliate links to both Amazon and hockeymonkey.com. And you can go to our webpage at thehockeynuts.com. And you can, on the right-hand side, click on the link to Amazon and Hockey Monkey. And if you click on that link, any purchases you make from those websites, a little kickback will come to us. And we appreciate everyone who's done it in the past and everyone who will do it in the future. So with that, I don't have anything else tonight.
I wanted to say one other thing. We've been blessed, Wayne, to put this podcast on for a year. It's the last show for the season.
It is.
And it's really been a pleasure to work with you. But we have a lot of listeners out there that we didn't have when we first started working together.
That's true.
And, it's been a blessing each week to sit down and talk hockey with you. I feel like I'm just doing a hobby, but it's a lot of fun. And I've enjoyed it. And I wanted to say thank you so much for your insight and your passion and your take on things. I really like picking your brain and hearing what you have to say. And it's meant a lot to me this whole year. I'm at work and I'm like, Wayne said this. What a good point that was. I'd like to hear what he has to say about this. And I do that. I do that frequent every week. So I really appreciate your insight, and it's been good working with you. And we've got a whole lot of listeners out there.
Has been a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to obviously ending this season, and the next show starts. We're changing our season over with the NHL season, so next week starts season 2. So we're looking to improve on what we've already been doing, and we appreciate all the listeners that we've had up to this point. We've had way more than I ever thought we would. So we appreciate everybody who has been listening up to this point, and we certainly encourage everybody to, if you're not subscribed to the show, to go ahead and subscribe to it through whatever means you get your podcast from, and we also encourage you to share the show with other people that you know that are hockey fans and that also listen to podcasts. And by growing the audience, we can use the power of numbers to our advantage to get us more feedback, more insight, more interaction, all of that stuff. The more people we get involved with the show, the better the show becomes as a whole. So,
absolutely.
We encourage you out there to get involved, and in the future, we would like to, if we can grow the show to a point. To a certain level, we would like to get involved with the league in some way. Go, like for example, going to the draft and going to the All-Star Weekend and actually attending these events rather than just talking about it. So that's something that our long-term goal is. But for now, we're just going to talk about it. We're just two fans, and we love the game. We're going to continue into season 2 and see where it takes us. And we appreciate everybody who's been listening to us. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Sir.
All right, so let's go ahead and wrap it up for this week. And until next time, we will see you then. Talk to you later, Steve.
Good night.